Welcome back to Developing the Leader Within podcast. We are back in South Florida today and speaking with Audrey Valentina. Audrey is a clinical mental health therapist and owner of Audrey Valentina Consulting, LLC. She is committed to healing and transforming lives through coaching relationships, hands-on mental health workshops, and speaking engagements specifically in youth, corporate, and athletic environments. Audrey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you so much.
No, it's my pleasure. And we're coming up on the ending of August, which brings us in September, a very a highlighted month for mental health, suicide prevention, and all those kind of sorts of things. And so we're going to be talking about leadership and mental health. But before we get into all of that, Audrey, just tell us a little bit about you.
Awesome. So a little bit about me. I was born in El Paso, Texas, and then moved to Boston, Massachusetts, where I was raised, which is completely different places. So the culture is very different. The people are very different. The food is very different. But I'm super grateful of everything that I learned in Boston. I had the opportunity to go to Harvard for a couple of semesters and learn from a bunch of great leaders there through a program that I was accepted into called College Preview. It changed my life. And so I stayed out there. I received my bachelor's degree in communication, broadcast journalism, and a minor in sports psychology. And I thought I wanted to be on ESPN on the mic. And then I decided I did not want to do that. I wanted to get more into the brain of like how the brain works, especially in sports. And so I decided to move to Florida, where I received my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. And now I'm a licensed therapist, mental health therapist. And I run my own business. It's called Audrey Valentina Consulting. So I do a lot of one-on-one work. I do a lot of one-on-one therapy for all ages, all different groups, all different just backgrounds of life. So sometimes kids, teenagers, corporate, and with professional athletes as well. So I really love all the different fields. I really enjoy working with them, and everybody is so different, and how people unleash their mental health is very different, and really just doesn't matter where they come from. It's all one thing, and it's that they just want to be better. So I really love that about this field. And I'm currently living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where I'm finishing up my PhD in leadership and educational studies. So I'm learning all about what it's like to basically be a leader in any way and in any environment. So because I run my own business, it's really important for me to know how to run all parts and know how to lead in the best way possible. So I'm writing my dissertation right now, and it's about really focusing on students of color and students in low-income communities receiving mental health services right when they get into school, just like math, just like science, just like gym class that nobody really wants to take, making sure that these students are receiving the mental health opportunities for them to talk about things out loud before it gets to, where we know it can go.
Absolutely, and that's wonderful work. I noticed that you go all the way from youth, and now you're working with college students. And I tell you that the biggest impact we're going to have at any given time is to get them before they're spoiled, right? Before the water gets tainted. We want to
Yes.
make sure that, and from a leadership perspective, I understand that for well, because that is also the group that I try to hone in and work with. So your work is so important. Now, I'll tell you that mental health is not the first thing people think of when they're talking about, let me go find this work that I want to do. So how did you get into mental health?
So I learned very, very early on, for like personal family reasons, that I needed to be strong, that I didn't have many choices. I didn't have many opportunities from where I was from in my family environment. And so I really needed to take charge at a young age. So when I became a youth, when I became a teenager, honestly, to just be completely transparent, I needed a me. And so I needed who I am now back then. And so I kind of am like really referencing the younger me and what I needed. And I'm trying to be that for my younger self, because I know there's a million of me walking around in this world who have gone through the similar things, and really trying to learn how to navigate it. And if it weren't for a couple of few people that believed in me, regardless of my family situation or where I came from or anything like that, just teachers at school that just believed in me a little bit, and pushed me to get into programs and pushed me to do these things, I don't think I would be the leader that I am today, or be able to run a business, or be able to speak on a podcast like this. So I really am grateful for those people, and I wanted to become one of those people that, a teenager can call and say, hey, can you walk me through this problem? Or even an adult friend can say, hey, like, what do you think about this? Can we reflect on what happened today? And I really love that responsibility in a sense. So yeah, that would be it.
Yeah, I'm delighted that you are capstoning your mental health experience and education with the leadership aspect, because, as you said previously, and you're trying to, trying to fill in the gaps from your youth,
Yeah.
which is always hard when you talk about growing. But I love that approach as well, because you are in a position of providing a service to people who are also trying to do the same thing.
Right.
Everybody's trying to correct the things that they didn't get.
Yeah.
And when they ask me, hey, Enrique, what's your why? I always tell them my why is to correct a wrong.
Mm.
And most people is like, what's that? When I was a youth, I had poor leaders, and
Yep.
those poor leaders had a detrimental impact on my future. Except that,
Mm.
kind of like you, at a young age, I had to create something to sustain me because my environment wasn't right.
Right.
So I had to be mentally strong. Although those scars, they stay,
Mm.
and we'll be talking here about mental health in a little bit, but those
Yeah.
cars still say. And so my whole why was revolved around these poor leaders, or at least one
Right.
specific, right, that did enough damage to help me catapult that. But
Yes.
I love that you're bridging that way between mental health and leadership. And talking about leadership, what role does mental health play in leadership? Because a lot of people don't see the responsibility there.
Right. I'm glad that you asked that, because there's a really big difference between like leadership and, having a supervisor, right? And there's a difference because of their own mental health. So I think as a leader, you have to really be able to sit with yourself and say, well, am I making, good choices for myself to be able to say to these kids or these youth or other adults that are walking in this world, living this world and breathing the same air as me, like, do I want to sit there and have poor mental health? Like, it's almost like having poor hygiene. And then, it's like, it's kind of how I kind of think about it. And so I think it's really important to say, what am I doing to better myself every day? And do I feel confident enough to sit here as a leader and say, hey guys, like, this is the way you should live your life, but then I'm not practicing my own mental health. And I think that that's something that we really need to think about. So routine is something that's extremely important. Making sure that you have that routine with yourself, a mental routine, a spiritual routine, things like that. And I'm sure we'll get more into those things, but really just as a leader, you have to have a clear mind to be able to speak confidently and say, hey, this worked for me and it changed my life. And it's not in a negative way. It's like, I have been in the darkest space as a leader, and I still had to get up and talk, but I didn't feel my best. I just was getting up because I had something booked and I had to get up and speak, but I knew in my heart, you don't feel the best, but you're going to get up here and do it. And I know the difference between, as a leader, I know the difference of getting up and feeling my best and being able to speak my best, and then getting up and not feeling my best and still speaking. And I can tell that wasn't the best that you did. You could have done better. And if you worked on yourself more, and if you, learned unhealthy habits, or you got up a little earlier, or just little things like that. Because I think as a leader, we're not managing right? We're not managing people. We're really just standing up and saying, hey, these things worked for me and it made me a better person. And I want to see if that works for you.
Yeah, and I totally believe that. And I also have realized that a lot of leaders don't feel the responsibility
Mm,
for not only their mental health, but the mental health of their people.
yeah,
Although clearly you can impact the mental health of your people, there's
absolutely.
a disconnect for some reason between leadership and the responsibility for
Mhm,
that part of their team members.
mhm,
I don't know why, because every leader knows that they impact folks. But if they didn't do this, then I wouldn't be in business, right? Because I joke around with about success, and it is truly a role that leaders play out day to day,
mhm.
and they think they're actually achieving, but you're the focal point of a conversation at a dinner table at night, and it's usually not good. But but when you talk about the role that it plays in a leader's life,
Mhm,
it's also you have to be able to identify what poor mental health looks like.
mhm.
So take me through that identification process, because most people don't know how to identify poor mental health.
So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Poor mental health can look so different for everybody. But something I'd really like to hone on is like people who have not had great experiences in their life, they tend to like get into a dark space and identify with that dark space. And they don't, when good things happen to them, right? Or when, good opportunities happen to them, they might get excited, but they also like maybe don't know how to play it out because they still have that like that dark thought or like I'm not good enough and things like that. So negative self-talk is something that is definitely an example of poor mental health and something like that's very hard for people to snap out of, because if most of your life you have experienced trauma or have experienced like heartbreak or abandonment and things like that, and then something good happens to you, you might run away from that. You might not know how to deal with that or accept. That's in romantic relationships, that's like in new best friends, that's in healthy relationships. And so I think something that is an example of poor mental health is trying to identify with that negative belief about yourself. So if someone has told you a negative belief about yourself, or you haven't had great things happen, so you've just adopted that negative belief, it is extremely hard to like let that go. And so I think that's an example of poor mental health. Um, I'll just bring up, things like social media might be, a example of poor mental health when people are turning over in the morning and it's like 7 a.m. and the first thing they're doing is like checking their DMs and checking Instagram. And, when that or Facebook or whatever it is. And when you're doing that, your brain is shifting, and it's like, now I'm going to listen to this person who might be like cussing or saying swear words or might be complaining. So now I've adopted that thought at 7 a.m., or someone's at a club or a party and it's like all those thoughts, it's just rushing through our mind. And I think we have to be more mindful. An example of having poor mental health may be not being as mindful as we should about what's going into our mind, just like what's going into your body. If you eat a 5-day-old hot dog that's been sitting in the fridge, you're most likely going to get sick. So whatever is going in your body physically, I think it's extremely, extremely important to say whatever is going into my head mentally, that's really how you're going to project. And that's really going to how you're going to project your energy throughout the day, and like what you're consuming. Making sure that you are exercising or that you're seeing the light. Depression is very, very real. And, we don't know that sometimes just opening the shades or walking outside, even if it's humid or if it's snowing, whatever it is, just walking outside and receiving different energy can instantly change us. Someone told me the other day that they take cold showers every morning, and I'm up for a challenge for sure. Like, I am a competitor. I am all about competitiveness, but the cold shower in the morning is just, it's a struggle. So I tried it, And let me tell you, it did change my body. No, I went to a little bit of a shock, but that was the point, was that they were like, no, it just changes your mind and you're up and like, you're just ready to go. And it's almost like drinking a cup of coffee. And it did feel like that, so really adopting healthy habits, I think, is really important, and not adopting healthy habits or noticing that you're in a bad space could be poor mental health. The people that you have around you and influencing you, what you're doing with your day, things like that. I mean, I could talk about that forever, but I won't get too much into it. But yeah, adopting thoughts and what you're allowing to go into your mind, I think, is really important.
Yeah, that's amazing because there's a correlation with your activity that facilitates the actual state of your health, like overall, right? You talk about the cold shower. I'm about to go to Puerto Rico, and we live in the mountains, and it's cold shower every day,
Yeah.
so I'm not looking forward to that, but it's gonna happen anyway.
Yes.
But the activity, if you're not conscious of your activity and how it leads you through these different roads in your daily life, you could be leading yourself
Mhm.
into a state of bad mental health. So talking about, the activities and habits around our a daily, daily life, and how that can lead us, what can we do to improve our mental health?
So I think if you're an early bird, that's a really great start. I love waking up at 5 in the morning to, go to the gym. That was not always the case, but now that I do, it's definitely changed so much of my perspective in the morning. I have such a clear mind going into the day. So things to do, really, like different tools could be, and I can just share my personal tools that I do. I do have a journal where I am constantly, some of my friends make fun of me. They're like, "We'll be in Jamaica on vacation, and you whip out your journal like at 7 a.m." I'm like, yes, because consistency and having that healthy habit is really important to me and my brain. And for me to be able to make good decisions, I have to have that, be able to flow in. And this is your frontal cortex. You're literally using anything that goes in, and you're making your decisions here, and so trauma goes towards the back of the brain. And so things that maybe we don't want to remember, or things that are traumatic that happened to us that we're not ready to talk about, it stores back there. So anything that you're trying to heal in the front, like decision making, or like learning healthy habits, is all what you're consuming every day, in decision making. And so I think that's really important, to understand your decisions every day. So something really healthy that you can do, and just a tip and a tool, is sitting down with yourself for an hour, no phone, even if it's like your coffee. I love having like my hot coffee with me. I do 10 things I'm grateful for. I do maybe 10 things I'm praying for, or that I'm hoping for. And it's all about gratitude and mindfulness, and having that tool every day. Just writing those things out is really important. Something else that I do is that I write down my to-do list, but it's not like a long grocery list of things. It's really by category of the areas in my life. So I run a business. I also go to school. I have, things like family, or things, or different topics in my life. So I write the thing that I have to do in that category, and then I write the reason why. And even though it's repetitive, and even though it might be like you're just writing so much and I don't feel like doing that, it completely changes the way that you do your why and the reason why you're doing that to-do list. So being organized is something really important for your mental health. I really suggest learning how to be organized and what that looks like for you, to organize the different parts of your brain. Because I've been told, when in my younger years, that you have so much going on, you're all over the place. And I'm like, maybe to them it looks like I'm all over the place because I'm a full-time student, and I was a kickboxer, and I was working, doing all these different jobs. And I was like, to me, I'm not really all over the place. I'm pretty organized, but I just do a lot. So if you're someone who does a lot or has a lot of responsibilities, I think that 20 minutes to an hour, or however long you can, to write down those things that we're grateful for, gratitude, and, how you're going to make yourself better. So every day I write something that's going to make me better. And I just say, like, today you're going to do this. And I hold myself accountable. I know sometimes we have like accountability buddies. I definitely suggest that. Like people that will hold you accountable for things, I think is very, very important. And then holding yourself accountable, because it's really not about anybody else, and it's not their responsibility, it's yours. So, bad things happen to us and trauma happens to us, but it's our responsibility of how we're going to deal with that. And so adopting those healthy habits in the morning are really important. So different tools, different things like that, sitting with yourself. And when you're having a bad day, sit with yourself. How can I deal with this? It's okay to rest, taking time to rest for your brain. Our brains are going and going and going. We can get a phone call that changes our life at any point in time. So peace and sitting with yourself and just learning yourself is very, very important. And when you do that, when you sit down with yourself every day and you have that hour to yourself of being at peace and mindfulness, you actually respond to people differently and you handle relationships differently. When someone calls you and they're like, blah, 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 you're like, not today. I think I'm actually going to just like handle this way. I love you and I want to be there for you. But at this moment, I just like need to have a boundary. Learning boundaries. I cannot express how important boundaries are, especially now with so much going on in the world and with mental health being such a touchy and huge subject, especially right now and through COVID. A lot of people needed a friend or a family member to vent. So you need to have those boundaries because that energy can also go on you. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, making sure in your what your chaos may it may look chaotic to somebody else, but I'm like you. I have a structured day, and
Mhm.
everything is intentional. There's nothing on that calendar
I
that
love
is
that word.
that is not meant to be
Yes.
there. And
Amen.
so, but I do allow times for me to be able to reflect,
Yep.
and so I'll go outside and I'm on grass, and I love grounding, right? So I'm touching everything,
Yes.
and just letting, any poor energy to release so that I can provide
Yeah.
the best, whatever it is that I'm providing, service or help or assistance, whatever it may be, so that I can do that and
Mhm.
you can feel confident that you're getting the best out of me. And
Ab-
so if you do not structure, I agree, if you don't structure that and also create, I love that you mentioned boundaries because there's a lot of people, they have open door policies, right? And folks will abuse
Yes.
open door.
Yes.
Now, everybody wants open door, but they'll abuse it. So you, as the recipient, have to know when that door needs to be shut, or maybe not shut, but closed up real close, where they know that you are busy doing something else,
Yeah.
and communicate. It's easy, right? Hey, look, you
Especially as
mentioned it,
a
right?
leader. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Hey, I would love to help you. And I will. But at this very moment, I'm doing this, that, and the other, whatever it is, because you have to take ownership
Mhm.
of your well-being. No one else
Yep.
will care. Now they may think about you, but no one
Yeah.
else will care like you do.
Not like you do. Yeah. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
when you you have this educational background, you have dealt with providing services, you have your own business, and you're going for your doctor, right? It's like you're compounding there.
Yeah.
um what is it that you love the most about coaching and training? I know where I get my joy.
Yeah. I would say in the mental health field, there is something called the aha moment. Not sure if you've ever heard of that. But if you have been to therapy, if anyone listening has ever been to therapy and your therapist or your psychologist or your doctor, whoever it is said, you know, you just hit your aha moment, that is like the breakthrough in mental health for us, as leaders and as mental health therapists and as mental health providers in the field. That aha moment is just as as exciting for them like as it is for us. Like it's so exciting to be like, oh wait, they like followed this like structure on their own. I was here to listen. I was maybe here to provide tools, but they saw themselves change through healthy habits or showing up for themselves and that in general just gives me chills because it makes me so excited. Not that I was part of it. It has nothing to do with me at all. It has everything to do with like them saying, I don't want my trauma to be, the highlight of my life. I don't want to be that person anymore. And because I've personally been through that journey and I'm constantly going through that journey every day, not allowing trauma and having that battle. When you see other people break through and say, I'm done with that relationship, that's not good for me. I went back 5 times, but I'm not going back a 6th time, and I'm not doing it. Things like that it makes your heart so full. When someone texts you and say, hey, I don't mean to bother you. I know you have boundaries. I know you said that you don't text after this time or you don't call after this time, but I really had to tell you this. You've changed my life, or like the dynamic of our relationship and what you've given me my responsibilities back to me. Because I think as a therapist, it's not just you sitting on the couch and saying, how do you feel? And I know that especially in certain communities, people are against therapy or don't want to go to therapy because they think it's just someone sitting there analyzing them and judging them. And I think everyone's different when it comes to therapy. So the way that I like to do it, because I've worked with a lot of youth, I've had to be on that same page and say, I literally know where you're coming from. And so watching them just say, hey, your technique, or just the way that you listen to me, or what I've learned about myself through these last 6 months, I'm a completely changed person. And that's what I love about this field is watching people and like, they can come and say, I am having suicidal thoughts and this is why. And then like a couple of months later, they're like, I can't even believe that I was there. I can't even believe that came out of my mouth. Like, I can't even believe that I even mumbled those words out loud or had that thought. And so it's not like we're saving lives because we're not, it's really just giving someone a space to be able to not be afraid to say how they really feel, or that they made mistakes, because a lot of us don't want to say out loud because we feel judged. And I think it's beautiful to be vulnerable. I think it's beautiful that more men, men of different cultures are now, and women are now going to therapy and things like that, and just saying, oh, this wasn't what I thought it was. And I love that piece too. So hearing certain feedback from people has been really beautiful on this journey for sure.
Well, you technically are unbinding chains that may have felt like a dead situation, right? And
Oh
so
yeah.
that's why people say, "Oh no, you saved my life." And when you're bound, there is no light, right? The rooms get dark.
They get dark, they get tight. Yeah. It feels
You go,
breathe.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you go 3,000 meters down or 300 meters down in the water.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like black, like you can't see, right? So there's
Exactly.
some times
Example.
in our lives that it seems that way.
Yeah.
And so I understand them, folks say, oh, you literally changed and saved my life, or you changed my life.
Mhm.
And that's all wonderful. Now,
Yeah.
some leaders need that aha moment. Some leaders need some unshackling, right? Some leaders need that. And we've been talking, a lot of it has to it points back at you and what you do. We mentioned a little bit about practices and habits that you have. So how
Mhm.
can leaders make their mental health a priority, because there are so many competing priorities when you
Mhm.
talk about people in leadership?
Yeah.
um, so how can they do that?
I think, when you say you're a leader, you've now adopted a responsibility. You've said I'm a leader. That's like whether your spiritual, person put that on you, or God put that on you, or you just think that you're a leader. Once you identify and say, and leaders know, they have the tools, they have that inner peace in them that they're like, oh yeah, like I can do, I want to lead people in the right direction. It all comes from like personal experience. So one, I think that it's really important for leaders to identify where they struggle. I don't like to say like weaknesses and things like that. I try to stay away from that word. However, I think it's really important for us as leaders to say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, and I need to get better at that. And I need to use my phone a friend card, or like, I need to use these different opportunities. So, something that I think that I need to work on was staying consistent, right, with working out. Because I was a kickboxing instructor, so I was like, I don't need a trainer. Like, I don't need that. I know how to work out. I know how to do this because I am a leader, right? I can kickbox and I can write my own workouts. No, no. I needed accountability, and I needed someone else to say, this is the workout that you're going to do. You gave me your goals. You gave me, what you're trying to get stronger at physically. So now I'm going to help you. And it comes with a price. Are you willing to pay it? Are you willing to do that? And I said, yes, I am, because I know I lack, as leaders, and we can be transparent here. We sometimes think we know everything, and sometimes we do, but sometimes we struggle with certain subjects. So me thinking because I feel like I have to be in control just because things in my life, right? So we feel like we have to have control over everything, and being vulnerable and saying, no, I need help. And so I need help with this, regardless of what it is. I'm a mental health therapist. I've been to school, I've done the work, and I have a therapist who I sit down and I pay her and I say, how can I get better at X, Y, and Z? So as a leader, the most important thing is to identify where you need to get stronger, because the people that are listening to you and the people that are listening to podcasts and videos and social media, they don't know what you actually go through unless you talk about it. They just see you on there, posting your workouts or posting certain things, but they have no clue what it took to get there. So I think that as a leader, it's really important to reach out to those who we think may be a little bit better at this than I am. So I reached out to someone who, as a trainer, and I really like their style. And so now I'm physically getting better. I'm waking up at 5 to get to the gym at 6. And I love doing that. And it's made me a better leader now. So I can sit here, and I didn't miss my workout this morning specifically so that I can get on here with you and have energy. Because if I didn't, I might lack energy. And that's not responsible, one, but also like, I want to be my best today. I want to show up my best, and so for this call and for the rest of the day. And so I think, just most importantly, leaders need to identify what am I struggling with a little bit, and how can I get better? And being vulnerable is extremely important as leaders, because we put a lot of responsibility on ourselves. And I think it's okay to say, I think I need to get a little bit better at this. And that's how you make connections. And that's how we can make each other stronger. And then now we can go make the world stronger, because people are listening to us every day.
Yes, and folks, if you're listening, I echo everything Audrey just said, but also don't treat your development as a dollar store venture, right?
Yep.
Not that anything wrong with dollar store or Dollar
Oh,
Tree.
right.
I love those places.
Yeah.
But if you treat your development at
Yeah.
from an economical standpoint, you're gonna cheat yourself, right?
Mhm.
And I always tell leaders, right, identify the suck in your success,
Yep.
identify it,
Like
but
that.
go do something about it. But it
Yeah.
can't be you, because if you could do it, then that suck wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So if you so identify it, go get it handled by somebody that you want to see yourself like, right?
Yep.
If they've attained something, go do that
Mhm.
and get that handled.
Yeah.
So great advice there for leaders, Audrey. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now, folks have been listening to you, for the last half hour, 40 minutes about mental health, leadership, the correlation, how to do, how not to do, and and all that. If they wanted to get a hold of you for your services and or speak to you or have you join them on their podcast, how would they do that?
Yeah. So my website is audreyvalentinaconsulting.com. All my information is there. So if you go scroll down to the contact page and write a message and put your information in, then I get right back. I'm really good at organizing in my email, so really pops up. I'm really consistent with that. So yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Outstanding. Well, folks, we're going to have that as part of the show notes and video so that you can get a hold of Audrey. I tell you, it's been a pleasure to discuss this very important topic of, mental health. I know that the last 3 years have been crazy. There's been a lot of us, I had to include myself, that
Mhm.
have lost loved ones to COVID, that have lost jobs, that have lost all kinds of things during the last 3 years that we did not expect,
Yep.
right? And so there's a lot of issues out there. A lot of people are not addressing these issues,
Mhm.
and it's gonna hurt them in the long run. So thank you for discussing this. Although very briefly, because it's a topic that we can go on
It's so
for.
heavy. I'm like, I have, oh my gosh, I could just go on forever. Trust me.
And we may have to revisit this in another
Yeah.
forum when we have more time, which
Right.
I would love to.
Absolutely.
But folks, thank you for joining us today as we talk leadership and mental health. Just a reminder, today's episode is sponsored by Triad Leadership Solutions. If you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to subscribe and let us know by leaving a comment right now. And we're always looking for new ideas and guests that we can add to our show. So if you know someone that have a topic or you want a topic covered and featured on the podcast, just send us an email at triadleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. And also, if you want to sponsor us, that'd be great too. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.